Urban. He comes back. Say goodbye.
Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out a winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium and Gale. It's your boy Corey.
It's Dan.
Delatorre.
And your boy Jay Scar, what it do, baby?
What up, 2-5? Straight off of Bourbon Street.
Yes, sir, man. I had a blast, man. It was a great time up there. It was a little busy, but when I got to having fun, I was having fun. Went to a couple NFL PA events. Got a lot to see a lot of former players and current players. Went to the hotel, got to check Fred and Chauncey for a little bit. So it was a good vibe overall.
Nights I don't remember.
Hey, happy birthday, man. Happy birthday. It was your birthday weekend as well. So happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
What year you in again?
Appreciate it. I don't even want to say it. Too close
29,
to 30, man.
Eric Dickerson?
29, big 2-9, though.
No,
Big Sean Alexander year.
No,
right?
Sean Alexander was 30.
Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, 37.
Okay.
37.
That's close. They're numbers. Close. Same family.
I wore 29.
Numbers.
Terrible year.
Oh, happy Dan Thompson year, Jordan. Happy Dan Thompson
whatever jersey
year.
was left in the back. It's 29 back there. Throw him that.
No, sir. No, sir. I was a hockey goalie, and at the time, a lot of goalies were in the 30s. And I forgot who it was. Somebody was like 29 or 28, 27. I'm like, I want to do something a little bit different. So, when you got to play and travel, you got to pick your number and went with 29. We just rode with that for the next, 8-9 years.
I was getting some FOMO, man. Enlighten us on the Super Bowl vibes in this totality. I was looking at your IG story, Jordan, and the food. It had me, bro. I was like, man, I don't want to be in that crowd, but that food looked like vibes right now. I ain't gonna lie.
Right? That was my main goal, man. I was trying to be out the way and eating good food all weekend, and I think we did a pretty good job of that. We got to try a lot of different, famous spots. We ended up going to Moro's. That's like a real staple down there. And I was impressed. I can say it wasn't one restaurant I went to that I wasn't satisfied with the meal. I will say, though, I think what's the name of that famous beignet spot?
Cafe Du Monde.
Yeah, Cafe Du Monde. I wasn't too impressed. I like Voodoo Bayous down here better, to be honest.
So people from New Orleans will tell you there are better beignets around the city. Cafe Du Monde is just
right there.
the name.
Okay.
Well, and it's convenient, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one of my friends, born and raised in New Orleans, parents got divorced, and he spent some time. I met him when he was in high school. But whenever I go down there, hit him up. He's the tour guide. He takes me places that are not on Yelp.
Right, right.
You can't really go wrong, though, in New Orleans when it comes to food.
No, you can't. In my opinion.
You can. You can go like McDonald's or Burger King.
Right.
Bad decisions.
I think that New Orleans food is amongst my favorite.
It's
Creole. Yeah.
It's like a wild melt Creole. Yeah. There's French influence. You've got unbelievable seafood coming from the Gulf of whatever we're calling it now.
Mexico.
Okay.
I prefer America. Gulf of America slaps a little bit better. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't know we had an option. I didn't know we had an option. But once I was given the option, I was like, yeah.
I didn't know the test was multiple choice.
I don't think anybody else is calling it that, but whatever. Gulf
Hold on,
America,
sorry.
Gulf
We've been remiss. We should have started the show, Corey.
Yeah.
Happy FSU
100%.
Day.
Yeah.
To everyone out there.
Right on here on the notes.
All of our listeners are celebrating happy 2/10, February 10th, forever known as Happy Florida State Day. Mike Norvell, shout out to you.
No, shout out
yours.
Only a man as great as Mike Norvell could create the worst team we ever seen in Big Three history.
I remember FSU fans had them Happy Gator Day on April 8th.
Been waiting to return that
for
favor.
years.
100%.
So love to return the favor.
100%.
Love to return the favor. Glad your day
they just don't hit the same anymore. It don't you can't
because
really troll 4-8 if you went 2-10. It just doesn't work out.
No.
Happy Florida State.
Jordan,
Day.
did you tap in with? I'm sorry. One more Super Bowl. Did you tap in with Fred and Chauncey after the Super Bowl? What was the vibes like?
Yeah. It was good vibes. Them boys was dumb lit. Obviously, they ended up hitting up some clubs, and I think Fred and Chauncey split up. I think some went to, the gentleman's club, and others went to regular clubs. So that's how the night ended up. But another note from that weekend, before I forget, I was at an agent party. Forgot the name of the agency, something Culture, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But my wife is good friends with one of the ladies that work in that agency, and I run into Coach Jamook.
In the VIP room.
I'm like, what up? Yeah, he like, you in my city, man. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, man, nice to finally meet you. Da, 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 da. It was a surprise.
You recognized his face and everything like that?
He showed me a good
time.
Yeah, I was like,
That's
he looked
dope.
familiar for real. And then I just was like, yo, you, what's the name? He's like, yeah, man, what's up? I'm like, I'm Jordan. He's
That's
like,
dope.
oh,
That's
what's
dope.
up, man?
That's fire.
Yeah,
Nick got some. We're gonna say the Super Bowl takes towards the end of the show. Nick got some halftime takes that I want to hear. He haven't shared them yet. So.
Yeah, I want to probably give an opposing view. So I'm ready to debate. Ready to debate.
That just means you're crusty old and white. If you're opposing my takes,
I am older.
Okay.
I am white.
As
I am for sure white.
As my music selection has shown, I'm
I know is
culture,
if people put a picture of me and a picture of you next to each other, they would not pick me as the older looking one, the more out of touch one. You know what I mean?
That's true. That is true.
But let's get into the show. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of coaching stuff to go over. We're going to bring on Evan Miyakawa from evanmaya.com. He is big in basketball analytics. His stuff gets talked about all over college basketball. So we're going to be excited to talk about Florida Gators basketball, who beat Auburn, number one team in the country, second time this year that they've beat the number one team in the country. And also the second program amongst, I think, 5 total that have ever beaten the number one twice in both football and basketball in this in any history of time in 1 year. So really cool story for them. Let's get a quick Brunt Insurance ad read, and then let's get into the show.
Stadium in Gale is powered by the great folks at Brunt Insurance and Financial Services. Anything you need insured in the Southeast. Most importantly, the state of Florida, from the Panhandle to the Keys, my man Greg got you. Home insurance, auto insurance, life insurance. If you have a motorcycle, dirt bike, RV, any of those things, you can get it insured. Bruntinsurance.com, get you a free quote, or you can give them a call at 954-589-2204. Greg's been insuring my home for almost like 10 years or something crazy, man. Great customer service. You can get them on a phone call. After storms, etc., having any issues, want to get a cheaper price, don't cost you a dime, get a free quote. Greg,
what to do, baby? STA Pride. Hey, we might have to. Valen said you told him he can come on.
Yeah.
And then Florida got smoked in Knoxville.
Wait, what?
I told him he could come on, and then they lost. I said, we'll get you on. I see him in the chat now, but I told him he can come on after.
You invited him on to talk basketball?
Right.
Silk initially did, and then he called me to rat on Silk.
Okay.
Silk had
not
fulfilled
here's the thing.
offer.
So
and then I said, it's up to
by the time I got back to this, I did speak to
Valen.
Valen, every time we talk basketball, I'd be like, bro, we got to get you on the show because, we need somebody knowledgeable, but also passionate about from a fan perspective. Like getting the writers is cool. So we talked about it, and then like Nick said, we lost, and then we had a jam-packed show of I think an interview, a guest, or something else. It just got a little busy there. But today, Dan put in the chat, we need somebody for basketball, and I was busy. By the time I got back to my phone, he already had a guest. But I was gonna throw it in there, like, yo, let's have Velo come on. He was at the Auburn game. It'll be perfect. Anywho.
Yeah. A big fan of Valen. I even know who Valen is. One time, just a few weeks ago, Nick confused Bari and Valen on this here program. I would never do that. Nick, I'll pull a tape, brother. So, but huge win over Auburn. Valen was there. Incredible victory. Down early by a lot, came storming back. Auburn kept there, got a little closer towards the end of the game, still won by 9 points. Gators sit number 3 in the country behind Auburn, Alabama, and then Florida. I don't know if you could have put a time capsule, 10 years ago and say, hey, there's going to be 3 SEC teams at near the end of the season, and those are going to be Auburn and Alabama and Florida. I would have maybe picked one of those programs 10 years ago. Well, I guess Florida had Mike White, so I would not have picked. But, you know what I mean? But the SEC is dominating college basketball this year, so Gators have still a tough schedule ahead, but go and defeat 2 number 1 programs. Blow 2 number 1 programs out. And then
what do you think about the rankings?
But you get it.
We get into that later. We'll do that later when we get.
I guess it makes sense, right? No, he should be here in a second. I think it makes sense that they're still number 1. It's their first loss, and it was to the number 5 team in the program in 2 months. Nick, you're on mute, brother.
Second loss.
First loss in 2 months.
SEC. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then
I always wonder this, though, and this is maybe tinfoil hat. We haven't had a regular season 1 versus 2 since 2008.
Oh, wow.
It was the basketball Iron Bowl is
this
week. I always wonder if Duke would have taken care of business, if Duke doesn't lose at Clemson, I think you easily see them jump up. They jump into the number 1 spot. And you see Auburn slide down, but when Duke doesn't handle business, I wonder if – and I don't know because there's so many people, so many writers vote in the AP poll. But
I think that Florida has either the number 1 or number 2 resume in the country right now. I think they've had some losses, which are going to hurt. But, you have 3 total losses on the year, so it's hard to complain about being ranked number 3. I think that we all thought that Florida was going to have a good program this year. I don't know if any of us thought that they would be number 3 in the country right now. But with that, we'll get into some basketball talk with Evan Miyakawa here. Evan, can you hear us? You there, brother?
Definitely here.
Awesome. It's a pleasure
Evan,
to have you.
Easy one to start with. I was just purporting a conspiracy theory that maybe Auburn stays number 1 because the basketball Iron Bowl was happening and we haven't had a number 1 versus number 2 regular season since 2008. Do I need to take my tinfoil hat off or am I onto something there?
I do not have that much trust in AP voters to have any level of sophistication near that, unfortunately.
Just so I don't need to storm the AP building.
No, I do not think so.
Okay. Stay here in Gainesville.
Yeah, just that's what type of bond money you got.
Easily influenced.
Evan, I know that we've followed you quite a bit on Twitter or X for a long time, and you are very much diving into the analytics behind basketball, and you do some very interesting things. You talk about most impactful big men. You talk about best duos in the SEC, and just looking back at our tweets back and forth, who are the best 3-man lineups in college basketball. Give us your perspective on Florida Gators basketball and what's worked so well for them and how they've been able to be so successful this year.
If I had to pick a couple things, the first would be I think that their backcourt, when you talk about Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, that 3-guard combo is arguably as good as anyone in the country. I haven't run the numbers recently to see analytically where that stacks up in terms of my player metrics, but it would for sure be probably top 3 at least. So when you have that, and then you're getting this production on the back end of the season from Alex Condon and Thomas Haug, where we had earlier games this season, like Florida's loss at home to Missouri, where it was like the guards are good, but the front court is just lacking. And then you flip the page and see how they absolutely not just handled or stayed toe-to-toe with Auburn's big men, but arguably played better than them down the stretch on the road, I think was really impressive. So when you talk about the development of their front court, I think that's huge. The other thing that I think about this team is, analytically speaking, this team has one of the highest ceilings, if not the highest ceiling in the country. I mean, they arguably got the best win in the country this weekend on the road to Auburn. in terms of how consistent Florida is game to game, they are one of the least consistent teams in the country. What that means is they could have one game where they play absolutely lights out and they're good enough to beat anybody. And then you could have another game where they kind of lay an egg, and there's more of a variance from game to game with this team. And so I think what that means for me is a result like we saw against Auburn, where not only did they beat them, we certainly knew that was possible, but they absolutely crushed them really from about the midway point of that first half all the way through the end. That's totally in the cards. But next game, they could really struggle in a game that they're not supposed to. And so, I think that's a little bit interesting thinking about their prospects in the tournament, because I do think at their best, they're able to beat anybody, but are they able to string that consistently 6 games in a row? I'm not sure. So that'll be a little bit interesting to track going forward.
Is there anything in the numbers that tell you does a high scoring or low scoring game favor Florida?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I do really think when you look at the makeup of this team, you can really tell when they're having an on night or not based on if they're just able to quickly rack up points. One of the things that I track on my website that you may be familiar with is the kill shot, which is any time that a team scores 10 or more unanswered points. It's kind of a way of measuring, are you able to go on scoring runs or sort of spurt ability in games to really kind of flip the script quickly? And looking at Florida, they are one of only 3 teams in the SEC to average at least one 10-0 run per game. And what that means is pretty much about once per game, if not more, this team is going to go on a run where they score 10, 12, 15 points unanswered. And that's a really good sign for this team in the sense that if you're behind, you can flip the script. If you're kind of in a close game, you can quickly, put a lead together. And on the flip side, they only have given up 6 10-0 runs all season. That's less than about 0.25 a game. So it's pretty rare that they give them up. So when you have that in the cards, that's a pretty good ingredient for success typically.
What do you think, Evan, I know that you probably think the ceiling is a national championship, but what are you realistically looking for out of the Gators over the next couple of weeks to kind of solidify where you think that they might end up come March? Or I guess I would really like to see them push for that 1 seed. I believe they can do it. I believe that they are good enough to do it. I think they're good enough to compete for at least a share of the SEC title if they play well. I have Florida ranked 4th in the country, and that's a pretty big deal considering the fact that the top 3 teams analytically in terms of who I predict to be the best going forward, Duke, Houston, and Auburn are and have been for a while a tier above everyone else. But then Florida is that next team in there. So I really want to see them consistently grinding out results. The SEC, man, we've talked about all year how good this conference is. It's historically great, and that just means that every single game is going to be a dogfight. And it's one thing to be on your best game and have a result like they had against Auburn on the road, but to do that every single night in and night out is more difficult. And so that's what I want to see from this Florida team is, can they consistently be excellent in this conference? It's going to be a tough task, but I do think they're good enough to do it. And I think I would really like to see them kind of reach that potential there.
I think what has been impressive to me, Florida's not a really deep rotation team. I just looked up the numbers. They're really like a 7-man rotation. This past week, coming off of that bad loss in Knoxville, you had to play at home without Walt, and then you go on the road at number 1, you're playing without Elijah, and you're talking about how good that front court is, that 3-man front court. Were you impressed at how they were able to play Walt, who I think, am I out of base saying like he could be an SEC Player of the Year contention, and you're playing without him? And then also, is it good to maybe get an Urban Klasvar and some other guys some looks? Because if you come down to the tournament, you're playing so many games, and hey, if we need somebody else to get a shot, hey, they've gotten some reps, some looks here late in the year.
I think the fact that they had Klavchar come out of pretty much nowhere. I mean, I'm sure Auburn, he was not anywhere in their top 5, 6, 7 players on the scout.
Probably not on the scout at all.
Yeah. And for him to hit those threes like he did, if you have that coming off your bench, that's a really big deal. So, I think the thing that I look at this team is Walter Clayton definitely is the best player in this team. Like you mentioned, I think he is a first-team SEC teamer, potentially a first team All-American if he continues to play well. But I do not think that this team relies on one guy to be excellent in order to win. When you look at their starting five, Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, Condon, and then throwing Haugen there as well as their sixth man. All five of those guys rank top 100 in the country in my player value metric, Bayesian performance rating. Basically what that means is when you look at what they are bringing to the team on a per possession basis, both in terms of their individual production, but also in terms of how they are impacting their team's chances of winning and of scoring better than the opponent, they are in the top 100 most valuable players in the country. And so you miss a guy like a Martin, bummer, but you still have four guys in the top 100. So I love that because it means that you don't, number one, if a guy's out, you're not, your game plan isn't ruined. And two, even if you have a guy or two have a bad game, you still have several others who can have a big impact. And so I really like that for sure.
No, just looking back, I'm trying to get the exact stats here, but obviously, Elijah Martin doesn't play in this game, but then you get Denzel Aberdeen, who came in and really did a great job. And I think at one point the Gators were 5 or 6 games into the year and had 5 or 6 different players score the most points to start the season. And it seems like there's a lot of back and forth with this team. They seem to play really well for each other. They seem to be completely bought in to the golden era here at the University of Florida. What are some things, and I'm sorry if I missed it, what are some things that you'd like to see them improve on if they really need to get a deep run in March and April?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I already mentioned is just the consistency game to game, just because metrically they are, one of the more inconsistent teams. I do think another thing when I look at just ingredients for success with this team, a metric that I've kind of identified for them on a game-to-game basis really is that they often do live and die by the three-point shooting. Mm-hmm. This season, when they shoot, I have a cool feature on my website called Keys to Victory, where for every single given team, it basically pulls up all of your team stats from a given game and identifies the ones that are most important to your specific team success. And if you boil it down to one metric for Florida, it is three-point shooting. And specifically when they shoot above 34.5% from three this year, under Todd Golden over the last couple years, they are 38-8. That's over 80% wins. And when they're under that mark, they're losing more games than they're winning. And that's a bigger disparity between wins and losses than most teams have. And so for this team, it's like, if you are shooting the ball reasonably well, you're going to win almost every single time. And when you're not, it's tough. So, I think you're going to have games where they do shoot the ball well, and then it's pretty hard to beat them. But do you have another way of winning when the 3-point shots aren't going in? Because, this team is really tough to guard on the 3-point line. They have so many capable scorers and so many shifty guards who can create shots. But some games it's not going in, and in that case, you got to find another way to win. So, how are you going to do that?
That sounds like you could have said that about Billy Donovan's teams. That feels like Florida basketball has been live by the three, die by the three for 30 years.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
I think it's the exact same opposite on the defensive end on our L's. We didn't defend the three good in every L. Am I wrong on that stat?
Yeah, let me pull that up here.
While you're looking that up, there's definitely been some games where, like Missouri just one of those games where you just tip your hat and you're like, okay, I guess the basket is the size of the Pacific Ocean.
Kentucky, right? I mean, Kentucky couldn't hit the broadside of the art.
Yeah, specifically those Kentucky and Missouri games, they did not defend a three well in those games. Tennessee, they did, but Tennessee is a bit of a different animal. They have their own way of winning and grind it out affairs. So I don't think that applies as much.
Yeah, when Florida beat Tennessee here, it's like Tennessee is physical. They're like a football team. And hey, we're going to play this brand. And I think Florida came out and was more physical with Condon and with Hawk, with who I've dubbed Florida's Dennis Rodman, Chinyelu, who is good for at least 6 points, 12 boards, and 3 to 4 shoves a game, kind of playing that enforcer role. But yeah, we're talking about a team that's only lost 3 games, but there has been, I think, lapses on the defensive end, especially early on in games where they will get out to other teams will get out to a big lead early.
Yeah. Just pulling this up now, all 3 losses that Florida's had this year, the opponent has shot better from 3 than them. It's pretty simple. So, and sometimes that's hard to control, but game plan wise, it's certainly very important.
Yeah, and I know that Kentucky game was a Bria that was just shooting lights out. I think he had 24, 26 points in that game, and then he followed up the next couple of games. And I don't even know if over the course of the next 4 or 5 games he had 26 points total. So sometimes a player just gets hot, and he got hot. So what other questions you guys got before we I want everybody to go visit evanmaya.com. I think it's a fantastic website. There's a lot of stuff on there you can get for free. I'd encourage you to support him. It's a very fair, I think, monthly charge of, I believe, $5. Right. So a lot of great analytical stuff on there, including who are the best top 100 players. What are the best lineup metrics for the Florida Gators, or if you're looking to do some advanced scouting of your own of who the Gators might play. But any final questions before we let Evan run?
Have we gotten eyes on Johnny Broom, or was he still in Alex Condon's pocket when Florida left Auburn?
No comment there.
He's still serving pizza to the. Imagine how bad it was.
One of the best players in the country.
Imagine how bad it smelled inside of that basketball stadium with all those people camping out for a week. That's just bonkers. I hope they went home and took a shower. You know what I mean?
Well, first off, shout out to Bruce Pearl, because that's
we will not be Auburn, shouting out Bruce Pearl on the show.
We just did. The Auburn basketball fans are lunatics. So shout out to them. I remember someone made a deal about them camping out for 5 days, and they were like, oh, it's because Bronny's coming to town. And they were like, how dare you? And they community noted that poor journalists. But yeah, Bruce Pearl's a great coach. As a member of, or a journalist from the Jewish Journal was interviewing Todd after the Vanderbilt win about 2 Jewish coaches playing together. Bruce Pearl, Mensch, great guy.
He hit him with a shalom.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Hit him with a shalom, yeah.
All right, go. Did you have a question, or did you just want to pump up the Auburn student section?
I wanted to pump up Auburn. Our fans like when I pump up the other schools. And I was also just APB for Johnny Broom.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Well, did you guys bring up the 2-man lineups thing yet that they mentioned on the ESPN broadcast?
We did not. That would be great for you to bring it up.
Yeah. So basically on the broadcast during the game, I think it was, Jay Billis mentioned that Todd Golden had directly told him that the 2-man lineup of Thomas Haug and Alex Condon was rated the best in the SEC. That directly comes from my website. So if you look at the best,
Richard. I think it was Richard and Haug.
Oh, are you sure about that?
That's what it says on your website now. Could have changed.
Oh, hold on. Let me pull this up here.
Maybe a couple days ago.
No, so lineup. So it depends on your possession threshold. So if you pull up under the lineup metrics section, lineup ratings, best 2-man lineups in the SEC who have played over 300 possessions together, it's Alex Condon and Thomas Haug, and they're comfortably first there. So looking at pairs who have played a decent amount, and Todd Golden mentioned that, and there was reference on the broadcast that directly comes from my website, and basically, you can look at any combination of players, two players together, 3, 4, 5, etc. And it also adjusts for the strength of opponent that those specific players face when they're on the court. But yeah, that duo has been really, really good. And I think definitely a very underrated part of how good Florida has been. And as we mentioned, they've just gotten a lot better recently.
In one of the rankings on there, I think was it the Bayesian rating? I'm just I'm kind of going off memory here, but it basically ranks your offensive output, your defensive rate, and it kind of combines the score. You have Thomas Haug. I know he plays less, right? He's more of a 6-man, but as the highest net rating on the Gators roster, which I think shows just how valuable he is. Obviously, he plays less possessions, but just shows how valuable and how deep, I guess, the Gators are.
Yeah, I mean, basically, a lot of it comes down to not only is his on an individual efficiency level are his numbers good, but when he is on the floor, specifically, Florida's offense has been awesome. They are, when I look at his on-off splits, the offense is scoring 16 more points per 100 possessions when Thomas Haug is on the floor versus on the bench. So that basically points to when he is on the floor, he is really making a difference in terms of their offensive flow, and whether it's him scoring or someone else, he's a really critical part of this offense. And so that's reflected in his high BPR because it's basically showing that, hey, when this guy is on the court, good things are happening. So, let's give him credit for that.
So I do want to ask a question from the chat here. It's from our friend Valen. He said, how do you get those numbers when there are 5 players on the court at the same time? I think I have an idea, but if you could break that down.
Yeah. So I'm assuming he's asking about the 2-man lineups, because basically, obviously when there's 5 players on the court, you have each specific lineup, but getting those 2-man numbers is basically saying, okay, look at all the lineups that Florida has played and then filter it down just the times when both Alex Condon and Thomas Hauger are on the floor. So it doesn't matter who the other 3 guys are, just the possessions when at least those 2 are on the court versus not on the court. And that's sort of how you can break it down into smaller sections of players. And I think that's really helpful about that is 5-man lineup data is can be somewhat unreliable, especially early on in the season, or if it's a lineup that hasn't played much, because there are so many different combinations of players that a team plays that unless it's your starting lineup or your second or third lineup, there's just not a lot of sample size to go off of. But when you break it down into smaller groups and say these 2 guys together, these 3 guys together, the amount of sample size we have to deal with to get more of a reasonable conclusion as to what's happening is much more reliable, and that's really helpful there.
Awesome. You're getting more data points when you
exactly
narrow your focus.
Evan.
Exactly.
I love that. So
you said that even like Coach Golden, I know a lot of these coaches use you guys analytics. How much of basketball and just sports in general do you think like analytics is changing? Like, do you expect like more analytical roles around sports in the future?
I think it's increasing every year. I think people are realizing that the more that you can use data to quantify the unquantifiable and move away from just your own opinions on things, but combining data with your own expert knowledge to kind of get the best of both worlds, the better in the long run you're going to be. And so, I really do think it depends on the sport, but like baseball has been the frontier of this for a while. Partly is because it's sliced into so many easy ways to kind of get data splits and things like that it makes sense that was the first sport. But I think basketball is one of the next ones, just because you can boil a game down to single possessions at a time, and you can say what happened on this possession. And so in that sense, it's a lot easier than say a sport like soccer where, you only have a couple goals a game and you have a continuous play happening for, 4 or 5 minutes at a time. So I think it makes sense that basketball is kind of the second sport, at least in America, to be really embracing the analytics movement. And I think especially within the college realm, I find it so fascinating because when we get to the transfer portal, right? The way that teams used to recruit was you would be looking at a guy in high school, you'd watch him on film, you'd go to his games for several years, you develop a relationship, and by the time that you're ready to sign him, you know pretty well how good he is, at least as a high school player. Well, now in college, you have to make evaluations on players in a matter of a couple weeks, a week, several days, depending on when they enter the portal. That's just not enough time to, develop a relationship and watch all the film. So using data to help you at least filter down your pool of candidates and saying, is this the kind of guy we want or not, is a real game changer. And that's why so many coaches are using my website and other tools as well to, target guys in the portal and make quick evaluations and find guys who fit specifically.
Are you a math major? Like, what led you to this? I was just curious. I'm nerding out a little bit now, man. Like, what? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have my PhD in statistics.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I've always loved it. I've always loved sports from a young age, and applying math always made the most sense to me in sports because there's just so much going on that I always was really eager to apply those numbers and probabilities and things like that to sports. And so it's really fun to be able to apply it in this way because I think a lot of people get it. A lot of people, even if you're not a math person, you can kind of understand why it's important in sports. And so I think it's really fun there.
But triangulating Johnny Broom's location is more geometry, or is that?
Yeah. I'm not picking up what you're putting down. Sorry.
I love it.
Listen, we're trying different angles here.
All right, guys, we're going to let you go. Evan, why don't you plug yourself a little bit, your website, where they can follow you on X, and man, we really appreciate coming on kind of last minute here.
Yeah. So evanmia.com is where you can find all the stuff. There's really everything for no matter what level of fan you are, if you're a casual fan or a very, analytical, nerdy person like me. There's a lot of stuff there. player ratings, team ratings, game predictions, lineup analysis, transfer portal stuff, keys to victory, player skill grades, like literally everything. And you can also find links to all my other social media platforms on there. Do a lot of stuff on Twitter, but I'm on Instagram and TikTok and that sort of thing. So you can find links to all that stuff on evanmia.com.
Awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate your time this evening, and maybe we'll talk to you around March Madness time.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks,
you. Evan. He wouldn't bite.
You got to throw better bait out there too, my brother.
I'm happy for him.
That's a great joke.
Let's do a couple quick ad reads. Let's get some bills paid. We got a lot to talk about in the football side of things. First, go visit our friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale if you're looking for vintage t-shirts, 3/4 sleeve shirts. They've got a few of those. They've got some track and field stuff, football, baseball, volleyball. Which you got to talk about Mary Watts. Forgot to write that down. Go visit homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale. You get 15% off of your order. They do have that really cool baseball pullover that Nick always is shoving in your face, coming back in just a couple of weeks. So go visit homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale, all one word at checkout. Beautiful, Nick.
Jordan's shoulders might not fit into this.
Well, we didn't get free ones. So homefieldapparel.com, promo code Stadium and Gale. All right. Perfect. All right. So we've got a lot to talk about. A lot of hires, some departures. I'm going to go kind of in chronological order here because I think that makes the most sense. The Gators did announce the hiring of Robert Bala. He will be the inside linebackers coach for the Florida Gators. He is joining UF from the University of Washington, where he was last season. He was at the University of Alabama the season before. He was hired into the role that Austin Armstrong was hired before he joined the University of Florida. Previous to that, he was at Liberty as an analyst, and then he was the defensive coordinator at Southern Utah. He was in competition. We talked about it on this show with Tim Skipper. So what are you guys' thoughts?
I have a correction for myself from last week, probably, maybe the week before. The NCAA, on a tremendous losing streak in court, is not enforcing the 10 on-field assistants. You still have to designate 10 coaches to recruit to go out on the road, but thousands of coaches, thousands of on-field coaches.
Go ahead, Dan. What you got, man?
So, Dan was right.
Yeah,
Dan can't speak right now.
He's trying to find the button. He's trying to find the button.
Listen, credit to me for being the bigger man.
If you guys listen to the show, you would know that I did say that. I do accept your apology, Nick. I think it means a lot to me. I think it means a lot to our listeners that we get information correct on this show, and us debating live, maybe without full information, doesn't help the listener. But when you come back the next week and remind them, I think it means a lot to the show, 100%. And most importantly to the listeners. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Integrity.
So Robert Bala, Nick, why don't you start us off then? Because, just as a token of my appreciation.
Guy, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we were the first people to put the news out. But experience at Alabama, experience at Washington, and another co-DC. I think we're getting several co-DC titles now. But inside linebackers coach, I think the move here, now you have a coach for inside linebackers. You have a coach for outside linebackers in Mike P. You have a cornerbacks coach in Will Harris. You've got your defensive line coach. You've got a safeties coach in Sunseri, Italian. I think this allows Ron Roberts to do probably what a lot of people in Gator Nation want Billy to do, which is kind of just be a CEO. He doesn't have to work strictly with the inside linebackers. Ron can kind of float around during practice, see a little bit of what's happening with everyone. But yeah, that's I think Robert Ball is a young coach, experienced in the SEC,
No doubt,
and a good hire.
Yeah, definitely a young coach. Interesting background. Just want to read through this a little bit. Played football at Southern Utah. Graduated in 2008, so that puts him at about 40 years old right now. Coached at Snow College. Never heard of Snow College. It's a small school in Utah. Then he went to Palomar, which is a school in the San Diego area. He actually started his career, football career, playing there. And then he was an intern with the Oakland Raiders. And then he went to the Ottawa, Arizona Spirit, which is in the NAIA. And then from there went back to Southern Utah for 3 years, to Liberty, to Alabama, to Washington, to Florida. So definitely an interesting background. I don't know enough about him. I do know that he's got a good reputation. I do know that he is somebody that is known as a tenacious recruiter. But of the people that I've talked to, I just don't know if I know enough to give a real take on the take.
Yeah, I think it was a good take. Just from I did some more research. I don't act like I know all of these guys when they make, like, some people try to act like they know everybody in the coaching world. I do not. I prefer Tim Skipper for a few different reasons. Experience is one. I think the staff is lacking some experience. So I wanted somebody with, that could add some years to the sideline and also knew the lay of the land, Florida, recruiting. Tim brought a lot of that to the table, and we all kind of know him from a previous regime, right? But after looking at the Baller hire in its totality, Bama wanted to keep him when they made the change from Saban, but the coach that was coming over from Washington was already a linebacker coach, so they didn't retain him at Alabama. Just looking at some of the Washington message boards, some people wanted him as DC and was considering him in that fashion. So just, doing some research and just searching around, like, he has a good football reputation. So I don't think it's a bad hire. I just don't think it's from my opinion, what we was lacking. I think our sidelines is lacking experience. And I was hoping that we would get some experience in the spot, but I think it's a solid hire.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid hire too. I'm trusting in Coach on this one. Hopefully he doesn't have a lot of experience, but let's just hope he brings a lot of high energy. He seems like a young guy, ready to get the guys going on defense. That's something you really kind of need, that energy boost, especially if you play in a tough position like linebacker. So I'm all on board with it, man. Hopefully he has a lot of juice and a lot of energy to get these guys going. The linebacker room improved week after week last year, so hopefully he knows that he has to come in here and basically keep it rolling how it was already rolling, if not make it better.
Yeah, I mean, and has some incredible
100%.
talent in the linebacker room this year. So he's going to have a full cupboard, I would think, to be able to make an impact, or to see the impact that he has on the field. Definitely a kind of a meteoric rise, going from an NAIA school to back to Southern Utah, which is your alma mater, and then to Liberty, then to being an analyst at Liberty, to linebackers coach at Alabama, to linebackers coach at Washington, which had just played in the national championship, to linebacker coach at Florida, is definitely a heck of a rise over the last few years.
Right.
And it probably says a lot about him and his work ethic and what he's been able to learn and accomplish in his career. So we welcome Coach Bala to the unlimited coaching staff that Florida will have. I'm curious to see if he'll be one of the coaches designated for recruiting. I am curious to see who those 10 are, right? I don't know if we'll ever find out. I think we'll be able to piece them together during discussions and conversations, but I'd be curious to see if he's going to be one of those names that will be out recruiting.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fairly early question once this thing's kind of settled in. I think spring football, somebody's going to ask that question in some type of capacity. I think we'll get it laid out to us, like who those recruiting coaches, because we're going to want to know who to hold accountable before they even get on the trail, right? Yeah.
Right,
but,
yeah. Got to know who to fire the tweets off to.
I think it's interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah. Top of the list.
Linebacker coaches is something different. Do we know if Peterson has signed his extension?
Whether the contracts are signed or not,
Okay.
agreements are in place.
Okay. Yeah, he's still working.
Per Billy Napier.
That every other week check is still hitting the bank account, or the first and the 15th.
It sounds like they got a deal kind of in place. It's just not like signed. Like it's on the horizon.
Yeah. Like that's what I was saying about January 31st. People thought like public execution day. I was like, no, even if well, hoping or expecting, I don't know what it was, but Billy said that on signing day. He was asked about it. And he said, yeah, our entire staff is intact. He said, we will be looking to continue to add, but our staff is intact.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised if there's another name or two added in the next, it's February 10th. So I'm going to say by February 28th.
By February 29th.
We're not having one of those this year. Speaking of numbers, I do want to shout out Anthony Beckett, a super chat. We don't get super chats in our live stream chat here on this new platform, so I missed it. So statistics is the absolute worst class ever I've ever taken. I damn sure don't recommend it at all. I remember taking it in college as my professor's first year in America from Turkey, and I don't think he was hired for his teaching ability. I think he was hired for his research ability. So I'll never forget that class. But Anthony Beck, we appreciate you. While we're here, hit the like button, hit the retweet button, hit the share button, whatever it might be. We want to get out to as many people as possible here, especially as we start to break down some of these additional hires. Brandon, yes. Shout out to Ernest Graham for being named head coach at Santa Fe High School in Alachua. Looking good, looking mean, looking strong. So we talked about Gerald Chapman's extension last week, right? Gerald Chapman was extended. I know we talked about him not getting the Bears job, but he was extended, and I would not be surprised if there's another extension announced here very soon.
I think they announced Chapman extension, right?
Yeah, no, they did. I just didn't know if we had talked about it on last week's show.
I'd like to announce that Dan has been extended by Stadium and Gale. HR let me know.
Hell yeah.
This week.
Shout out to HR. Crazy. I'm usually HR, so whoever my boss in HR, I appreciate them reaching out to you, Nick. Let's see. So again, going chronologically, Coach Rasul, who was a cornerbacks quality control coach, big on Twitter, fan of the show, I know that, did announce that he's taking a job with the Las Vegas Raiders. So he will be departing or has already departed. So we certainly wish him well in his next venture. Certainly get the opportunity to coach in the NFL is a dream for a lot of people. And so congratulations to Coach Rasul.
Doesn't seem like much because he wasn't the on-field coach, but he was an important guy. He's always in a lot of clips with Crow Money and some of these dudes on off the field working on their game in the IPF. So that stuff you see on social media is a lot of him doing. Very respected in that locker room. Him and Will Harris was a nice duo punch, man. Mm-hmm. So hate to see him go. You know, hopefully we got some other DB guys around the building that we can give a raise. But would have liked to kept him, to be honest with you. Being that these staffs have unlimited, like you can go anywhere with this. That's one guy I would have liked for them to, put some resources to keeping him around. I think he's very valuable, but off to the NFL. Congrats to him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Then the Gators announced today the addition of Nick Polk, who is going to be the football general manager. Now, I find it semantically funny because we were told there will be no GM because there is somebody in the GM role already, and that's Jacob LaFrance. So what do? Just see the word football in it, and then they're like, here's our football GM, not to be confused with our general manager. So Nick Polk is coming to the Gators. Long, illustrious career with the Atlanta Falcons, where he served as the director of football administration and the director of football operations, which included salary cap, draft negotiation, contract proposal, player contracts, coaches contracts, cross-checking scouting assignments, trade and trade value analysis, CBA compliance, and the like. After he was with the Falcons, he most recently served at Athletes First, which is one of the largest sports agencies in football, where he was an advisor, contract negotiator, search firm relations, and professional development advisor. So Nick Polk is coming to the show, or coming to the program. If you listen to this show, Nick Polk was a name that I said.
I thought he was coming on the show. I thought you had him in like in the green room.
No. Florida doesn't want their
coming to the
anybody
show, man.
talking to the
excited.
media. Yeah.
I don't know front office like talent, to be honest with you, right? So I Googled, find out his resume. And when we first started this search, I said I wanted somebody with NFL experience, general manager, numbers, cap, all of that stuff, man. He meets the criteria of what I wanted, so I'm cool on the hire. I don't have any bad or good opinions about it. I just think we needed somebody with NFL experience and not some amateur from Louisiana that has never done this before.
Yeah, I like the hire as well, man. I agree with Corey on that one. I'm not too familiar with the front office stuff that much either, but if he coming from the NFL, he definitely knows some things, and he can definitely put us in the right direction. So I ain't mad at the hire.
Yeah, I think the Athletes First thing is definitely something worth noting, being able to be on both sides of contract negotiation and being able to understand what bargaining chips agents are going to bring to the table, the relationships that you probably already have, being in the industry now, especially as college NIL moves very heavily towards agents, and being able to negotiate those contracts and making sure that it's a fair deal for all parties involved. Nick, are you allowed to have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I think the way and I can probably give a little more light to it too. Okay. The way that we're moving, and Billy's talked about this, a lot of coaches are doing it. You're seeing vice president of football operations, general manager, with revenue share coming, schools can pay the athletes. They can help market the athletes. I think you need somebody from an NFL system as the college game gets more and more similar to it. From a paying the athlete standpoint, you're going to need somebody to, okay, what's our NIL budget this year? What is like an NFL roster, an NFL team will say, hey, we're allotting X amount of dollars for the quarterback room. Are we over budget? Are we under budget? Here's how we're making these puzzle pieces fit. And then you might need somebody. So I think the other guy they hired, who you'll get to, Benjamin Elsner, is probably more of the number cruncher, right? While Nick Polk is overseeing what they want to be a 3-person department. And then I think you have another person in that department who is probably the person who is finding out the real number. Because numbers are thrown around by agents, numbers are thrown around here and there, and then you probably have some sort of think tank there to be like, hey, listen, do we want to go over budget? Because we have a chance to get this person, but getting this person will put us over budget at this position. And then you start to have some of those conversations or things like that. But getting somebody with 18 years of experience, negotiating with players, negotiating with agents, I think is important, not just for Florida, but probably any serious Division I football program, Power 2 program, Power 4, it's Power 2.
And then finally, Nick, you mentioned it. I also see your comment, Anthony, that Jordan Harold is going to be leaving Florida. So we're going to do a little research on that, and we'll come back. So the addition, like Nick mentioned, Ben Elsner comes to the University of Florida as formerly the Director of Football Strategy and Chief of Staff for the 33rd Team. If you're not familiar with 33rd Team, it is a website that does a ton of football analysis, and very similar to Evan Miyakawa that was on earlier, a lot of very deep dives into performance, mock drafts, player projection, that kind of stuff. So he comes from there. Still relatively young in his career, graduated from University of Massachusetts back in just 2021. So has spent the last nearly 4 years with the 33rd team. And, obviously somebody that was very well respected. 33rd team, unless you're in the analytics space, you might not be familiar, but that is definitely probably the number one source for analytics in the NFL space. So definitely somebody that's still very much on the come up in their career. So he's going to be joining the staff as the director of football strategy at the University of Florida. So we'll probably learn a little bit more about what those roles look like over the next few months. You can read the press release and you can read the quotes, but probably still some undefined roles and positions there. Not undefined, but more. We will find more scope out later. Maybe.
Very nice.
Left you speechless. Very good. All right, let's get a quick ad read for our friends over at Game Time Sidekicks. If you are looking for the best cups that you can possibly imagine, keep your hot drinks hot or your cold drinks cold, go visit GameTimeSidekicks.com. Use promo code STADIUM15. Bunch of products for the University of Florida, a lot of other products for other schools as well if you are doing any shopping. So again, GameTimeSidekicks.com, promo code STADIUM15. Jordan, I know you were there. You're at the Super Bowl. Want to give a quick shout out to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Fred Johnson, who are Super Bowl champions, as well as
shout out to Fred, man.
Yeah. As well as Executive Vice President Howie Roseman, who is a University of Florida graduate as well, for winning that Super Bowl. All right. Mary Wise has announced her departure from the University of Florida as she heads into retirement. At the time of her retirement, and alumna of this show, she ended her career with 1,068 career victories, which is the fourth most in Division I history. She was, up until the other day, the only coach currently coaching in volleyball with 1,000 or more career victories. She is tied for the highest active Division I coaching winning percentage, which is .834. That is 8th all-time in NCAA history. 8 NCAA Final Fours, 83 NCAA tournament victories, 30 regional semifinal appearances, 25 SEC championships, and 15 SEC Coach of the Year awards, 13 undefeated SEC seasons, and 3-time AVCA Division I National Coach of the Year. She coached 142 All-Americans. Or All-American honors. So congratulations on your retirement, Mary Wise. All right, let's get into recruiting. The Gators did announce the addition of 2 players in the recruiting class on Wednesday. One is a long snapper, and then the other is Onis Conenberry. He was a 3-star cornerback, or 4-star, depending on what service you're looking at. That he is going to be joining the program. A native of London, England, had previously been committed to the University of Tennessee for a very long time, decommitted from Tennessee, committed to Florida, and then signed on Wednesday. Gentlemen, your thoughts on Onis Conenberry?
Good get. They've been chasing this kid for a while. I gave up on him. He was supposed to go signing day. He pushed it back. Early signing day, he's supposed to go. He pushed it back to
badly kept secret, I think. By
the time signing day came up, but after early signing day, I was just like, "Is this kid good enough to follow all the way to February?" I was kind of maxed out energy wise with recruiting, so I just kind of gave up on it. Staff finished the deal. He had his official visit last month, and it was good smoke coming from that. Rangy kid, long. I didn't know he was from out of the country. So NIL works a little bit different for those guys. So I don't think it just came down to like NIL bucks, like your traditional or your average recruiting these days. But old school selling your program, selling the future of the, the school, everything else. Shout out to Will Harris, probably the best recruit on the team. Yeah. His room is absolutely loaded.
Absolutely. And I did say his name, so I apologize. Otis Conan Banny. Sorry.
International Gators.
International Gators. Have they gotten an international kid in every Billy Napier class?
I don't know.
Because we got Enoch.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, them boys got to crack the depth chart. We got to stop going over there.
Yeah, Enoch, Jason Zandamela, who's originally from Nigeria.
Sometimes, man, there's kind of guys on your team.
Where is he from? Where is Zandamela originally from?
And I know Enoch was from Germany, I believe.
No. Enoch is Noel Portillan. Excuse me. I interviewed him for Florida Victorious and got it right. And he was surprised. Portillan.
Did you ask ChatGPT? It's okay if you did.
No, I didn't. I went and listened to a different interview, and that person, instead of trying, just asked him to say it. So I just copied. But did my due diligence to get it right.
That's what I do when I don't know somebody's name and I'm trying to introduce them to somebody. I'll just be like, oh, this is my friend James, and then they'll put their hand out and they'll respond. And it's like, oh, yeah, their name is
Rob. It is the oldest.
Oldest trick in the book. I'm so bad with names. Wife's there with me. Hey, this is my wife, Lauren. And get them to say their name.
That'd be so obvious, though, man.
I didn't know Jeremy Crawshaw was from a place called Emu Plains.
You haven't read anything I've written or tweeted about him in the last 5 years because Emu Plains prominently featured.
Yeah, I probably didn't do much reading. I mean, you are on mute.
You were like, I'm not on mute.
We have a player, Ethan Wilson. Shout out to Ethan Wilson. He's graduating, but he's from Coral Springs.
On the football team? Okay.
I'm looking at our list. Yeah. You went to Coral Springs Charter. Of course, you didn't go to Coral Springs High School. We haven't produced a D1 athlete in years. So, yeah, Noel is from Germany. Enoch is from Manchester, England. So,
yeah, man, them boys going to have to eventually, like I said, crack the depth chart, bro.
Bro, every year we're getting the number one player in the country.
So we might want to stay in that bag, man.
Absolutely.
Gotta get the NIL bucks don't slap the same. How does it work, Nick? Do you know how NIL work in those countries? I know they can't technically get NIL, but how does that work here? Okay.
No, they can get NIL. So when you are an international student, and you come to America for college, you get a student visa. So Jeremy Crawshaw, for instance, he was a Florida Victorious athlete, signed with us. We couldn't do promotional stuff with him when he was here. So when Jeremy went back to Australia, he would film stuff and we could pay him when he was back home. But if you are profiting off of your name, image, and likeness, you're not using your student visa for what it was issued for. So they could revoke your student visa. So when we have international athletes, we have to wait until they go home. We just did a bunch of stuff with Brendan Lawson, who is from Toronto, and a freshman baseball player who's going to start this year as a freshman. He had to do all of his stuff when he was back home because we can't have them do their actionables and their contract.
Makes it hard to do marketing deals.
Yes. Yeah, I think Crawshaw signed over his rights to like his name, image, and likeness to Alma Mater when they made like the Punches for People 2 shirt with the mustache, and they had a shirt with him. And I think what happens is they are able to sell and whatever you've agreed to with him, whenever he goes back home, they're able to pay him out on what his portion of it was.
Oh, so they just kind of keep it in a trust, if you will?
Sort of. Probably under the mattress, not really in a trust.
Yeah. No, I got that. Accrue some interest, don't pay the interest. I get it, man. Hey, it's a great strategy. So
making it sound shady.
So that's where they're at. Florida finished 7th in recruiting rankings overall, depending, I guess, on where you look for the class of 2024. I think solid.
No,
very solid.
Very good class. I mean, it's not a huge difference between 5 and 10. It's like you get into like very small numbers there, man. So we already had a good class. They finished up even stronger, number 7. Talent acquisition is not the problem in Gainesville. So everything is everything. We're on the up and up.
Everything is everything. All right, and then finally, let's get into some over-under numbers. Las Vegas is starting to put out some numbers for the Florida Gators. Over-under today came out 6.5 win total for the Florida Gators. You buying over 6.5, or you selling under 6.5?
I'm going to the playoffs. Yeah,
I'm climbing the ladder to 8 and taking the 8.
I'm definitely over that
8?
6.5, bro.
Give me all the juice. Yeah, that 6.5 is a breeze. I had to climb up a little bit, make it a challenge.
No, you're supposed to be Nick.
Positive or negative?
Yeah.
I'm taking the over, and I'm just talking myself into 9.
You feel me?
9.
I got Lagway taking snaps. I don't know if y'all.
I'm 10 wins in the playoffs, dog. I ain't gonna lie to y'all.
And a year 2 running back. I got
the Charlotte quarterback forgot about it for a minute, but
yeah, he definitely did.
That was crazy.
Your jokes on his end.
That was crazy.
Here on FSU Day, national, highly regarded FSU Day, as we sit here in February, I can talk myself into 9.
I don't know if I've ever thought I'd hear those words.
I don't like when they set the over under at.
I told Dan a month ago.
Yeah, what they set the number at is a different conversation. Like, I mean, it could be a combination of things. It could be the strength of schedule, how people see the schedule, which I don't think is a world beater this year. It's a lot of turnover at quarterback, roster wise. I think we have the most returning like starters in a lot of different in those matchups. But I think it's interesting for them to have it at 6.5. Just considering what Lagway is, he's in the Heisman odds as well in Vegas. So people are thinking highly of this team. When you turn on, like, most writers, most podcasters are putting Florida in the playoffs. So the over under to be at 6.5 definitely caught me by surprise.
Yeah, I think anything less than 8 is a severe disappointment for this team.
For sure. That's how I feel.
Especially with the amount that other teams are replacing and what Florida is bringing back in the positions that they're bringing back. I think anything less than 8 wins is a massive disappointment.
8 wins is disappointment, man. I think we got to make the playoffs with this team, just from a couple of different standpoints. I think definitely out of the 2 years, you want to make it at least 1. But just looking at the landscape of college football, the talent that's on the roster with a quarterback like this, and we haven't been aggressive in the portal because we think we got everything to make a run. So the way it's all lining up, the messaging that you're sending to the fan base is we're suited and ready to go. We built this thing the right way. We don't need a whole lot out of the portal because we've been building this thing from the ground up. So, yeah, I think it's a playoff or bust type situation, man. It's going to be hard for me to be sold on the future of Florida anymore. It's already tough, but to be sold more, I need to see this team hit that next level. Like, we hit 8 wins this year, and I thought we underachieved. We left some wins on the table when you go back and look at some of those games. So if this team this year was above 8 wins in my mind, like, next year's team needs to be, playoffs, top 12.
At LSU, first week is tough. That's going to be a really tough game. They get Nussmeier back. You mentioned, and I think you're right, about you look across the schedule, quarterbacks leaving, and not to mention Florida gets theirs back, like Miami. Who did Miami get in the portal?
Carson Beck.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
with the roster that Miami has instead of the roster Georgia has around him. Fine with that. We'll see how his elbow is doing, too, by September 20th. Shout out to Frank Delatorre. Happy birthday. Get to spend that with my dad down there.
Heck yeah.
But LIU, South Florida, at LSU is tough. This is a little tough stretch here at LSU, at Miami, Texas. At Texas A&M will be tough. Georgia's tough, but what will Ole Miss be? I guess we'll get to see Austin Simmons. Kentucky, not going to be very good. Tennessee late. FSU's going to be in shambles.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I think we, like Corey mentioned it, the part of the over-under is set because of, look how hard the schedule is. And this year, I think the narrative will be, what do we see, especially if DJ comes out, especially if DJ comes back out in the spring and just balls out, looks fantastic all spring. The narrative this offseason will change from last year's was, man, look at Florida's schedule, look how tough it is, to, those guys have to come to play DJ Lightweight. They have to come play Florida. So I think we'll have a completely different narrative this offseason than we did last season, despite the schedule being nearly identical.
Yeah. I think just I don't want to harp on the schedule too much, but like LSU, I've seen what Nussmeier brings to the table. We do gotta go on the road, and the environment is different, but I think catching LSU early is better than catching them late. From how many portal players they're bringing in, they have really brand new team. Like they went very heavy in the portal. So we've usually in the past, like we called Jaden Daniels when he was Heisman Jaden Daniels, right? Like it was later in the season, but when Florida State called him and some other teams called him early in the season, like they was taking some lumps. They didn't look as sharp. So usually we get LSU when they're really into a roll. So to be able to catch them off guard and we have more returning players, I just think that's more in our favor in the early games, all the continuity. Like we're not really bringing in a whole lot of new faces. So that should put us at an advantage in my mind. And like I said, the Texas, they come into the swamp. They got a new quarterback. He's very talented, but they got a new quarterback, a lot of turnover, two new coordinators. It's just a lot of continuity missing, even with Texas. They lost both their OCDC, DB coach, a lot of things going on. I could go down the list, but like every team that we're playing, even Miami, is new coordinators, new quarterback. Like it's major moves being made. Just from a football standpoint, football laws, like we're set up continuity-wise, staff-wise, player-wise, retention. We're set up to make a run. And this should be a playoff team, man. We could just go from team to team. Everybody's got new quarterbacks, new coordinators, a lot of portal additions, and we're not in that seat. So we'll see.
Yeah, and we'll do that as we get a little bit closer. But I think we even talked about that going into last season too, when everybody talked about it being the hardest schedule ever in college football history. And we said there's just a lot of schools that are replacing quarterbacks and replacing important folks. And I don't want to undersell how important it is that the Gators are returning 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, that they're returning their starting quarterback, their entire running back room. Sure, they've got some question marks at wide receiver, but you're getting a more mature linebacker group now. I think you've got a great secondary group that hopefully can stay healthy. I think that Florida is it just seems like 6.5 is very low. So you've got to capitalize. And I think to be honest, and this is my take, is you've got a better chance this year than the year after, just because you're not replacing nearly your entire offensive line like you're going to have to do going into 2026. Right. So I think we're all on the over, though, right?
Definitely.
Hammering the over.
Jordan, we got a question for you.
Yeah. I saw the question. I do think, just off of seeing the flashes from that kid at the bowl game, I think that he may get some burn. Let's see how he does in training camp, to be honest with you. I like the kid, honestly. He's showing great burst of speed, just like he says. I think he's real, tough in between the tackles, even though he's not big. Like, he runs really tough. So I like him personally, but if that running back room is so stacked, a lot of fans aren't going to like to see Jaden Ball out the game. And you got a senior, too, who's trying to get some touches. It's definitely going to be a sticky room. But if he can find a way to get himself in there in training camp, man, make some plays, maybe catching the ball out the backfield or something, because I don't think either of them are really great catching the ball out the backfield. So if he can showcase that, I think that'll be his best way of kind of getting on the field, kind of getting that third down back area to where he can possibly pass protect and or just get you out and
I was thinking that same thing, man. I think he's one of those guys that could get flexed out wide. I do think he's I think Ball is just explosive, strong, physical, got good vision, balance, all of that. But if you just goes like straight explosiveness, I think Caden Daniels is the most explosive and fastest kid out of his stance in that room. And I think the staff is also playing a little bit of chess with shoving him last year. Because all it takes is a couple runs, which he started having towards the end of the year for teams to start hitting you in that portal. Hey, what's up, man? You shouldn't be sitting behind 3-4 guys. Exactly. And I know he did get hit up.
I think that's going to happen regardless, like I mentioned in the last show, in the past couple of shows. When we have too much talent and, the game is just so grimy now, dudes leaving out of nowhere. I just don't see it all our talent stand for the entire year and coming right back for the returning year because it's just so many young guys that's talented as far as the receivers and the running back goes. But we'll see who leaves.
I appreciate Jordan's old man get off my lawn with this portal stuff, but I want to know
what's up.
18-year-old Jordan Scar. What were your numbers freshman year?
That Jordan was definitely out of Florida. I can tell you that.
I'm like.
I was
Jordan
not touching the field at all. I was very pissed off. I don't know if he told a story about it, about basically how I ended up getting a starting job because it happened my sophomore year. I think it was in training camp, and Crunk was going in as a starter because Crunk obviously played over me as one of the backups to KT.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know how it happened. I think he called a screen or something in training camp practice, and it was a scrimmage. So he caught a screen and somebody whacked him. I don't know who hit him, but he fumbled. And basically on top of the fumble, he's basically instead of getting up to get the ball, he just kind of act like he was hurt. And then he kind of milked that injury all the way through training camp to the first week. He tried to come back and say he was straight. But by then it's over with. We too deep in this room for you to be acting hurt for more than one day. So they made me starter.
He pulled the 10-year NFL vet. Being you know what? I'm gonna have surgery sometime in April, and that'll get me back for game 3 of the preseason. But
he didn't just fake that injury. I ain't gonna say fake. I'm sorry. He didn't just.
I believe it was fake. That's my dog, but I think it was more so the fumble that kind of made him be like, "Damn, if I look like I just got hurt, that fumble ain't as bad." But it really ain't matter. You sitting yourself out.
I mean, you got to politic and nurse that thing a little bit differently because it was a lot of competition. So he's maybe I can. You can't lose your job to injury in most football situations, right?
Listen, Jordan will tell you they are quick to get you an MRI.
I'm trying to tell you.
Quick to get you a CT. Quick to get you. You will have an X-ray before your pads are off.
I'm telling you, you're gonna have
that. You better start punching your calf if you say, "Hey, I got a deep contusion." You better. On the way on the cart, just
right.
We got to make one if there isn't one there.
But yeah,
they don't have an MRI for a bruised ego.
For real, that's really what it was. But
shout out to Asa Turner.
I definitely wouldn't be there probably if I had the portal. How I had the portal, considering how many teams I left on the table to go there and ride the pine my freshman year. But it all happened for a reason, man. Gator Nation is worldwide. Everywhere I go is Gators, man, and I wouldn't take that bad for the word. I'm almost glad I didn't have the transfer portal because I wouldn't have all these connections to this day.
Guy just walked into sophomore year with a butt full of splinters, riding the pine all year. I knew there was a reason why Jordan was so against the portal. It's because it wasn't open.
Because it wasn't. All right, guys. I think that brings us to the end of our show. Go visit alumnihall.com.
Wait.
Oh. Well, let me get through this ad read then, Nick. All right. Go visit alumnihall.com. Go visit them online. Use promo code Stadium and Gale, all one word. You'll get 20% off of your order through the month of February. So you've got 18 days left in February. So go visit alumnihall.com. Anything that you could want Florida Gators related, alumnihall.com. Visit them online or on Archer Road.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the Super Bowl.
We do. Can't help to notice I put the connection together. Chiefs easy back-to-back Super Bowl wins. They get rid of Tommy Townsend and just get smashed.
Yeah, it must have been it.
Missing link. Shout out to Tommy enjoying tax-free Texas. No state income tax.
I thought it's because they got rid of Kadarius Toney.
I see the math in that one.
No, I don't know if that's the issue. That's
you know
that
what
math
I mean?
ain't math.
I mean, they could have used Tony.
The number of times they punted last night, they could have used a little more net average, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if that's – yes, I think the biggest thing the Chiefs had wrong yesterday was their punting net average.
They had a whole lot more wrong than that.
Do we think that the first thing they talked about was their special teams EPA?
I doubt it.
Or no?
They probably wanted to make
but
sure
they
Mr.
should.
Mahomes had a Uber.
Be one of the last. They had that boy rapping all night long.
Not much of the game. Corey, you were vocal, not calling it the Super
I told
Bowl.
y'all what it was yesterday,
Calling it
man.
the K-Dot concert.
What is everybody talking about? Nobody's talking about the game. Everybody's just talking about the K-Dot concert, man. They just so happen to play football around it.
Well, so here's my take on why people didn't like it. I think the Super Bowl is very commercial. Super Bowl halftime shows, they're looking for someone who has bops, who's got club bangers. Entertain me. Kendrick, that's not his career. That's not his motto. That's
I
not
gotta take
what
because
he's
he
trying
does
to do
have
with
those
music.
tracks. He just didn't use those.
Right.
I mean, he should have kicked the whole thing off with Mad City. Yeah, like, you hit me with Mad City from the beginning, and I'm in. I enjoyed it. I also am not smart enough to pick up on all of like. I didn't know that Drake had been thirsting over SZA for the longest time since they broke up.
Yeah,
and now she's rolling around on the X in the PlayStation logo. You've got Serena Williams, who doesn't mess with Drake either. She's crip walking. And the camera goes up to her.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of messages.
Kendrick's an onion. There's just layer after layer. You gotta have people peel it back for you. But
yeah, the lowercase A necklace.
Oh no, that's actually from the logo. His
like, why is he
new record
rocking-
label logo.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, it's a lowercase A.
Amazon A, bit.
Yeah. I never went into it thinking Kendrick was going to be commercially, publicly applauded for this because it's not what old
Or just
white
middle,
men
just
want to
just the
hear.
average person. Like
I also thought,
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, the average, just a novice music fan not going to be into it. They want to have Rihanna sing. Hey, I know all those songs. I thought they should have put Wayne and the whole Cash Money. Great to do it in New Orleans, but I get it. Kendrick's having his moment. Also, Jay-Z, not a fan of Drake. Jay-Z picked the halftime show.
yeah, and there's some connections, with Wayne and Drake and all of that from way back when.
But I enjoyed it. It was not.
So I
It
like
was scripted, but
I don't listen to nearly as much rap as I used to. You guys know that. I like Kendrick Lamar a lot. I think he is one of the most brilliant lyricists. And I think if you watched that concert with closed caption and you could read all the lyrics, I think people would be absolutely amazed. I didn't think I thought the show was very good for him. And I think that there was a lot of messaging. I think that there was a lot of institutional things that he was going after. I didn't love some of the song selections. I didn't think, I kind of thought that would be a fantastic part of a concert. I just don't know if it gave the energy or the vibe of a Super Bowl halftime show. And that's not to say that it's bad at all. I thought it was a fantastic performance. I think what we're used to is very different. And I think that it unfortunately fell a little flat with the general public. Now, do I think Kendrick Lamar cares?
Yeah.
No,
not at all.
Not a bit.
Do I think that Jay-Z cares? No. Do I think the NFL might wonder did this fall further down than we thought it might? I don't know.
Kendrick's not. Go ahead. Sorry,
but he's not your Lil Wayne. He's not your Drake. He's not that kind of hype rapper, right? He is a lyricist. He is a storyteller. He's a communicator. I thought some of the audio was a little off too, especially at the beginning. And that can happen. I just, certainly when you got towards the end, I thought, he brought a lot of energy and what he did was an exceptional performance. I just think it fell a little flat.
Yeah. Kendrick is for Black culture. He's for his community in LA. He's for social reform, pointing a light on social issues. And like Corey just said, laugh. And you're like, do you think he cares? No, he doesn't care.
Right. No.
What you thought. No. He was given a platform and he got his message across. And his message is veiled and layered. And the way that he does stuff. I mean, you could listen to a song 15 times and find something new that you didn't catch on, a double, triple, quadruple entendre. Mm-hmm. I liked it. I don't know that the message is for me, for people like me, but I appreciate that he took that stage
absolutely
and stuck to it. And it wasn't like, hey, listen, I just got to go play all my number one hits because Super Bowl. He's like, no, I'm going to do the show that I want to do. I'm going to do the performance that I want to do. That's dope.
I thought it was awesome. I'm a K-Dot fan, so I was going to enjoy it. Like, it was going to be hard for me not to enjoy it, but I thought the messaging was a little bit for everybody, man. Just from a hip hop standpoint, I don't want to get too deep into the all the artsy and messaging that he had going on, but I thought it was unique, just from a hip hop standpoint. The American flag and being patriotic is not a hip hop thing. Hip hop has been more anti-America than anything. So to see him embrace patriotism the way he did. Of course, there was some other messaging going on there, but I thought that was unique. The audio was a little off at times. There was sometimes if you wasn't doing that show, if you're not a Kendrick fan, you're not gonna know what's going on. But I know all the music, so it's a little bit different from me. But just listening back to it, like post Super Bowl, I can see how some people at some points of the show couldn't really get the audio. But I think music is art. The way I see it, like, it's to be interpreted. Mm-hmm. There's surface level art. Like, there's some people that are just painting, clown faces, and that's art and just random things. But then it's also
Rebecca Black has a song.
There's also Picasso and Van Goghs that are interpreted and broke down. Even like The Matrix, there's surface level movies, and then you have some art and entertainment that's layered. So it was a layered piece, man. And Super Bowl is usually sex, drugs, entertainment at halftime. Mm-hmm. So to make the average American sit and think for 12 minutes and kind of process it wasn't going to come off as the popular thing. So, like, the feedback is exactly what I thought it was going to be this entire time. Like, I've been saying it since they announced it, like, this is going to be something totally different than Super Bowl has ever gotten, which it was. And the outcry, the outrage, I think it's even. It just depends on what your algorithms have. Like, if you like it, then you're probably going to see a lot more positive things about it. If you don't, then you'll see more of that on your feed. But I think it did what it was supposed to do, and that was just spark conversations, have people talking, but it was Americaned out. It was an American flag out there. It wasn't, your kids ain't have to question sex and other different things going on. It was just music and art. And I thought that was a breath of fresh air where it wasn't any debauchery or degeneracy going on at halftime. So I enjoyed it. It's my favorite one all the time. But I'm just a K-Dot fan at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was solid.
See, I appreciate the message, but most of my music choices are does it slap? Like when I played the Weatherman, the Irish sea shanty, slaps. Goes into the rotation. So I think my favorite halftime show would be the one they did in LA with like M, Snoop, Dre. That was just my top banger after banger after banger, which is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and most people go nostalgic. Like most acts go to their hits. He decided just to keep it current.
That's what kind of disappointed me with him. Like, you had so many more.
It was all current.
That you just
it was
left. Like,
right now music.
Off his new album.
Yeah, his current thing was doing his thing too, but not everyone was on his new album for real. Like, yes, it was a lot of messages in it, but I think he should have just got more of the public involved with just throwing some old hits. So even like bringing in other people, like I feel like that it was primarily just him. Yes, SZA was in there too. She had her little part, but that was only off his new album.
Yeah, he had an agenda. I think he got it off, man, because he could have made it mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, the song he had.
He was just on tour with.
I saw.
I'm forgetting her name right now. I don't know how I'm forgetting her name. Chick, Mahomes. I'm sorry, Kelsey's chick. What's her name? Taylor Swift. He was on tour with Taylor Swift. They headlined a tour together.
Oh my God! If you bring Taylor down, Bad Blood.
What I'm saying, if you're headlining a tour with Taylor Swift, you're like mainstream. Like you have mainstream fans. So like mainstream, he has a mainstream audience. He just didn't play any mainstream hits. And I think that was more of the issue people had than it just being Kendrick. It was his playlist, and he just kept it current.
Kendrick's got bops. He's got club bangers. He's got number ones. You literally could have played Taylor Swift Bad Blood, just your verse, pointed up to her at her box to put a spotlight on her. She would have been dancing, singing. You would have had people
trying to watch the party
in their living rooms. 8 to 12-year-old girls. Yeah. Kendrick doesn't care. He had his message. He stuck to it.
Though.
Yeah, no. Big Kendrick Lamar fan. So.
I feel bad for Wayne. Wayne was definitely in his feelings. Also, the Carter 6, my God, thank you. June 6th.
He'll be in Tampa in a couple weeks doing.
What y'all want to hear him sing? Lollipop?
Louisiana. It's Lil Wayne and
Lil Wayne could have done a 4-hour concert of number one bangers. You could have just done Lil Wayne from
Here's the thing, you got to read the room.
5 to 10. Just as mixed.
You want him to bring out Juvenile and GG out there?
You can't have in 2025. It's hard to have Lil Wayne come out there. You know, like his reputation has just been opioid, drug use. Like they couldn't sell that in 2025. It's the Super Bowl, bro. Like you got to be a little bit clean cut. Like what's the most rugged dude they put on the Super Bowl? Like think about it. To headline, they're not about to put Lil Wayne ever as a headliner, bro. Mm-hmm. It was his whole thing has been, and his image is not clean enough. He didn't headline it.
Snoop was on trial for murder.
He didn't headline it though.
That was like 3 decades before. But yeah. Beat the charges,
is
allegations,
too, like
erroneous.
He's everywhere, dude. I don't know who his agent is, but he's everywhere. I don't know if he's struggling with money, but he is everywhere.
Shout out to the commercials.
Yeah, he's in Super Bowl commercials. Trump. He's judging stuff. He's with Martha Stewart. He's with Trump. Like he's everywhere. I'm like,
I can't lie. He made the biggest move. I think when he told everybody he was trying to quit smoking.
It was a barbecue grill.
People was all over his Instagram, like, hold on, stay strong, don't smoke. I think it came out. Y'all crazy. And it was like advertising one of his little grills. I'm like, that was a smart move.
Bro. Pay the marketing person.
Shout out to Snoop. All right, we out of here.
All right, Nick, you got song of the week. Let's get out of here.
Oh, buddy. I go back. I go back country. No, let's stick it with Kendrick. We're gonna do Mad City though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, we will see you same corner, same time next week. Appreciate everybody for watching this week, and have a great week.